Hey there, and welcome to Experiments in Africa Insights, the podcast where we unpack the tools and methods that help us figure out what works in programs and policies and why. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a fascinating approach called realist evaluation. If you've ever wondered how to get to the bottom of what works, for whom, in what circumstances, and why stick around, this episode's for you.
So let's start with the basics. What is realist evaluation? At its core, it's a way to evaluate programs by digging deeper than just, does this work? It's about understanding how a program works, for whom, and under what conditions. It's a theory-driven approach, meaning we start with ideas about how a program is supposed to work and then test those ideas with data. The key framework here is something called CMO, context, mechanism, outcome. Let me break that down. Context is the setting or conditions where the program happens, like a rural community or a busy urban hospital. Mechanism is the process or behavior that makes the program tick, like training volunteers to build trust with people. And outcome is the result, like better health outcomes or higher school attendance. Realist evaluation ties these together to say, in this context, this mechanism leads to that outcome. It's like detective work to figure out why things happen. Let's make it concrete with an example. Imagine a program that trains community health workers to improve patient follow-up. In a rural area where clinics are far away, the mechanism might be that trained workers build trust with patients, encouraging them to come back for checkups. The outcome? More follow-up visits, maybe a 30% increase. But in a city where people have easy access to hospitals, that same training might not make a big difference because the context is different. That's the power of realist evaluation. It shows how context shapes what works. Now, you might be thinking, how's this different from other evaluation methods, like randomized controlled trials? Great question. RCTs are fantastic for testing if something works under controlled conditions, like a lab experiment. But they often don't tell us why something works or fails in the messy real world. Realist evaluation embraces that messiness. It assumes programs don't work the same way everywhere and focuses on uncovering the conditions and processes that drive success. So instead of just saying, this tutoring program raised test scores by 10%, realist evaluation asks, what about the classroom environment or teaching style made that happen? And for which students? So how do you actually do a realist evaluation? It's a step-by-step process, and I'll walk you through it. First, you develop a program theory, basically your best guess about how the program works. You write down some CMO configurations, specific contexts, mechanisms, and outcomes you expect. For example, in low-income schools, smaller class sizes, mechanism, lead to better student engagement, outcome, because teachers can give more attention, context. Next, you collect data to test those ideas. This could be interviews with participants to understand mechanisms, surveys to measure outcomes, or observations to capture the context. The goal is to refine your theory, keep what holds up, tweak what doesn't. It's iterative, so you're learning as you go. Think of it like refining a recipe. You test, taste, and adjust until it's just right. If you're new to this, here are 3 tips to get started. First, be clear about your program theory. Write down your assumptions about how the program works. It's your roadmap. Second, use mixed methods. Qualitative data, like stories from participants, can reveal mechanisms, while quantitative data, like stats, can confirm outcomes. Third, be patient. Realist evaluation takes time because you're dealing with complexity, but the insights you get are deep and actionable. Of course, it's not all smooth sailing. There are challenges. One is defining contexts and mechanisms clearly. They can be tricky to pin down. For example, is community trust a context or a mechanism? It takes practice to sort that out. Another challenge is data overload. You might end up with tons of interview transcripts or survey results, so you need strong analysis skills to make sense of it. And finally, realist evaluation isn't always the right tool. If you just need a quick yes/no answer, something simpler might be better. Let me share a quick success story to show why this approach is worth it. I came across a case where evaluators looked at a youth employment program. In urban areas, the program offered mentorship, which built confidence in young people and led to more job placements. But in rural areas, the same program struggled because there was no reliable transportation. Context matters. By using Realist evaluation, they figured this out and added shuttle services, which boosted the program's success. That's the kind of practical change this approach can drive. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. When you're evaluating a program, don't just ask if it works. Ask why it works, for whom, and in what circumstances. Realist evaluation gives you the tools to answer those questions and make a real impact. That's all for today's episode of Experiments in Africa Insights. If you want to dig deeper, check out the work of Ray Pawson and Nick Tilley. They're the pioneers of realist evaluation. Subscribe to the podcast for more episodes on evaluation methods, and let me know what topics you'd like to hear about next. Until next time, keep asking why and stay curious.